Welcome to another program in our series on Free Thinking Forum. It's my great pleasure today to have with me my longtime friend, Ray Schreurs. Ray, thank you for coming in today and sharing some of your wisdom with us.
Well, I hope it's wisdom.
Well, we'll see. Mm-hmm. Now, you started out a while back in a religious education back. What church was that? Where was that?
Oh, well, it was just natural, I guess. My father was raised in a Dutch Reformed church. My mother was raised in a Presbyterian church, and we attended the Dutch Reformed church. The earliest time I can remember are maybe 4 or 5 years old, and it was in a little community in Nebraska called Firth, a Dutch community.
Yeah.
I don't remember being baptized there, but they tell me it happened.
Well, most of us don't remember.
They don't. We attended Sunday afternoons. That's when the service was in English, because
Instead of Dutch
in the morning. It was very hot. We used cardboard fans with a little stick that supported them. We would use to stay cool or to be cooler. But I always remember there was a biblical scene on the front, and on the back there was an advertisement for a local mortuary.
Well, just in case you couldn't fan anymore.
Exactly. And there was no Dutch Reformed church in a little suburb that we lived in later called Havelock. It was a suburb of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so there we attended the tabernacle, as they called it, of the Christian and Missionary Alliance. I don't know if that denomination still is around.
I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah. And I memorized Bible verses in the Sunday school there, but I had a...
Did you have a favorite one?
Well, yes, I had a money incentive because my Dutch grandfather would give me a few pennies or even a nickel.
Wow.
And a nickel was a lot of money in 1930 or 31. Anyway, the one he liked best was John 3:16. Mm-hmm. You know, the one, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and so on and so forth. So that's the one I used to recite for him.
And that's worth a nickel.
Well, sometimes. And a nickel would buy you a big candy bar back in those days.
Yeah.
The next church we attended was in Lincoln, Nebraska. It was called the Evangelical. Mm-hmm. It later merged with the United Brethren, and now they are part of the United Methodist denomination. When I was about 12 or 13 years old, I had to attend catechism classes taught by the Reverend Richard Heim, as I remember his name. Yeah. And I started having trouble studying that little booklet. I forgot to bring it along, but I still have it.
A catechism booklet.
I got a little, and it was published in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania by the Evangelical Church. I couldn't understand this concept of predestination.
Really?
It was a problem for me.
And that's the concept where you believe that God has predestined each person for heaven or hell.
Yeah, God decided before you're born, apparently, who would be saved and spend eternity in heaven, and the others, the unsaved, would burn in hell forever.
Ooh.
And so I thought to myself, why be good if it doesn't make any difference?
Yeah. You're predestined.
One or the other.
Just go on out and have as dissolute a life as you want.
Exactly. Doesn't make any difference. So that was my first problem.
So what are you reading nowadays?
Well, generally I'm reading 3 or 4 books I like to read. And the one I'm currently reading, I'll have to look at it to my
Piety and Politics.
Piety and Politics. It's by Reverend Barry Lynn, and it has to do primarily with the separation of church and state.
I see the subtitle, The Right-Wing Assault on Religious Freedom. So he's standing up for a separation of church and state.
Absolutely.
Would you like to read a bit of it?
A little bit of it. Well, he points out in here in the beginning that religion doesn't need the government's assistance. And I can see here on page here. He points out, no, this is the U.S. Supreme Court in 1947 came down that the Establishment of Religion clause of the First Amendment means at least this: neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church. Neither can pass laws which aid one religion, aid all religions, or prefer one religion over another. Neither can force nor influence a person to go to or to remain away from church against his will, or force him to profess a belief or disbelief in any religion. And that goes on. This was
That's an important statement by the Supreme Court.
back in 1947.
Yeah. And so Dr. Lynn discusses some other aspects of separation of church and state.
Yes, it's a very good book.
Now that phrase goes back to Thomas Jefferson, doesn't it?
Well, it's, of course, in the First Amendment.
Well, yes, the Congress shall, what is it, establish no,
Yeah. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech and so on. But that has been the basis of government not sticking their nose, you might say, into religion. However, there is a problem because, if I can find it, well, now I'm running out of places.
well, there's,
Oh, here it is.
oh, good.
There's the problem. Former President George W. Bush unveiled a faith-based initiative that would award huge government grants to religious groups for social service work. Now, already, some pastors have shifted political alliances in the hopes of winning a grant. One was an early critic of the idea, Robertson. He stopped complaining after the federal government gave one of his charities $1.5 million.
Wow.
Another minister, Louis Cortez of Philadelphia, frankly told the New York Times that his support was for sale.
Whew.
This is what I tell politicians, Cortez said. You want an endorsement? Give us a check and you can take a picture of us accepting it, because then you've done something for us. That's candor, but it's also selling your soul.
Yeah.
But Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Mason, Benjamin Franklin, and other framers knew why we needed a separate church and state. It wasn't because religion is a force for evil. The framers did not believe that. It was because religion, united with the raw power of government, spawns tyranny.
Yes.
So,
I've studied a bit of history of the church, and it's really amazing to me that the church has been taken in, so to speak, by government at times,
these grants, yeah.
just as a result of being some money from the state. Beginning way back in 325 A.D.
A long time ago.
Council of Nicaea, yeah.
But for Jefferson, Madison, and other framers, this was not a theoretical concern. They had seen up close the dangers of an injudicious mixing of religion and government. As a young man, Madison witnessed Baptist preachers languishing in jail because they had dared to preach in public a religious doctrine that conflicted with government-imposed orthodoxy at that time. But the book is excellent.
Good. Now, you've had a big hand in creating a bookstore at the First Unitarian Society, and is that one of the books for sale?
Yeah, they have that, and there's two others that I'm currently reading that are there.
One of them by David Breeden.
Yes, we have at least 4 books of poetry by Reverend David Breeden. And the one I'm currently reading is News from the Kingdom of God, Meditations on the Gospel of Thomas.
Now, we don't hear much about the Gospel of Thomas.
No, it's not in the official Bible, you might say. I think they uncovered it. I don't remember the exact history, but they found it in a jar in Egypt some time ago. Some Bedouins discovered it, and they ended up selling it to someone else. And there's one person that has a book on this, Pagels, I think her name.
But these are meditations on the Gospel of Thomas by David Breeden, who's now the senior minister of First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis.
That's true.
So which one would you like to share with us?
Well, this appealed to me, News from the Kingdom of God. Perhaps it will tell me where or how I can buy or earn a ticket or whatever it takes to enter this kingdom.
Yes?
Let's see if I can find something here that would be of interest.
I see David Breeden writes an introduction there.
Yes, and it's in the introduction. He points out, sometime in its 2,000-year journey, Christianity became more interested in the story of Jesus rising from the dead, the otherworldly magic, than the hard work of living in this world. Christianity became a set of propositions to believe in, no matter how difficult that belief became, rather than a way to live a life of peace, care, and relationship. Yet, when we turn to the words of the Gospels, the red letters of the words of Jesus, isn't it peace, care, and relationship to the sacred and to each other that we read about?
Yeah?
Somehow, Christianity lost its way.
Well, I think if you look back at what happened in 325 A.D., Constantine, the emperor, had his troops all around the bishops of the church as they met in Nicaea.
I remember that. Yeah.
In effect, was telling them, you'll become the state church if you'll just settle on one doctrine. And they came to some agreement, and so they became the state church.
Yeah. Now, these are all the sayings of Jesus recorded in the book of Thomas.
Yeah.
And I'll share a couple of them, which I thought were of particular interest.
Good. Number 22.
Yes, number 2 was Jesus saw some babies nursing. He said to his followers, "These little ones having milk, they are like those who enter into the dance." And when they refer to the dance, they mean the dance into the kingdom of God.
Yes.
His followers said to Jesus, "Then we will enter into the dance if we are babies?" Jesus said to them, "When you make 2 one, and when you make inside like outside, and outside like inside, and top like bottom, and male like female, so that there is no male or female, when you make eyes that replace eyes, hands that replace hands, feet that replace feet, images that replace images, then you will join the dance." Interesting. And
he writes a meditation on that, I see.
yes, this saying 22 is a key to grasping the mode of thinking in the Gospel of Thomas. Male/female is another binary that has no place in the dance of the sacred. And the final saying is called 114. And that's when Simon Peter said to them, Mary should leave us, for women are not worthy of the life. Jesus said, Look, I will lead her and make her male, so that she herself will be a living spirit resembling you males. For any woman who makes herself male will enter the dance of the sacred. That's the last saying of the Gospel according to Thomas.
I think there's a little sense of humor in there.
Yes. And David's meditation is, see saying 22 for further reflection. Simon Peter clings still to dualistic thinking, in this case a prejudice of his place and time against women. The life appears to refer to the life of an inner circle follower of Jesus. Breaking the concept down to language Peter will understand the assumption that males are somehow superior to females. Jesus assures him that women have equal opportunity to enter the dance of the sacred. I thought those were particularly good points.
That is a great insight, I think.
I agree.
That Jesus saw women as equally able to enter the kingdom of God, and explaining it to Peter in terms that he could understand.
Correct. Now, the last book that I'm currently reading, and actually I haven't read very much of it, but the cover attracted me to it.
A universe from nothing.
Yeah.
Why there is something rather than nothing.
Than nothing. And it starts by stating, that is the author, Lawrence Cross, states that he's not convinced that creation requires a creator, which is the basis of all the world's religions. A world without God or purpose is harsh or pointless, but this doesn't require God to exist. And let's see if I can find a section in here under science.
And I've seen another book by authorities that suggests the same, that creation does not require a creator.
True. Science has been effective at furthering our understanding of nature because the scientific ethos is based on three key principles. 1, follow the evidence wherever it leads. 2, if one has a theory, one needs to be willing to try to prove it wrong as much as one tries to prove that it is right. And 3, the ultimate arbiter of truth is experiment, not the comfort one derives from one's beliefs, nor the beauty or elegance one ascribes to one's theoretical models. Now, I haven't got very far into this, so sometimes I skip to the afterword.
Aha! See what what he ends with. Yeah.
And
this is an afterword by Richard Dawkins.
By Richard Dawkins, yes. And he points out, nothing expands the mind like the expanding universe. The music of the spheres is a nursery rhyme, a jingle to set against the majestic chords of the symphonic galactica. Changing the metaphor and the dimensions, the dusts of centuries, the mists of what we presume to call ancient history, are soon blown off by the steady, eroding winds of geological ages. Now, I like that particular phrase because I happen to be a geologist.
Yes.
So I used to be. I mean, I've been retired for quite some time, but I like geology.
Yes, I like that too. I didn't realize Richard Dawkins could be that poetic.
Yes, very much so.
Was there something else you wanted to
Well, that's
share with
probably
us?
because I haven't read this book yet. I've just started. I read the preface and I read the afterwards, and I looked at the chapter headings, and it looks very interesting. And a friend strongly urged me to read it, and I'm fascinated by it because how do you make something rather than nothing? And the next book I'm going to read, I haven't started that yet, but I like the title on it.
Brilliant Blunders. From Darwin to Einstein?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Colossal mistakes by great scientists that changed our understanding of life and the universe. Well, that should be interesting.
Right.
Blunders. Well, we'll look forward to your coming back and telling us all about that one.
As soon as I read it, as soon as I finish it, huh?
So, Ray, we've got about 8 minutes left, and I'm wondering if you'd like to tell us a little more about your experience in the. One thing I wanted to get to is your social justice work on behalf of you and your wife take part in as volunteers. Would you tell us about that?
Well, for 7 years we have been escorts, volunteer escorts at Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. And that supports our feeling that one of the many of the problems of the world are caused because there are too many people.
Overpopulation.
Overpopulation, people competing for everything.
And so, and also the freedom of a woman to decide for herself.
Absolute freedom of choice. And so we volunteer there almost every Wednesday from 7:30 in the morning until 10:30. But my wife is on the front steps, you might say, to support anybody walking in. I'm relegated to the back because I don't have as much control of my temper as she does.
Well, what rouses your temper?
Well, when people start calling me names and saying, "Oh man."
You mean protesters?
Oh yeah, they say, "Oh man, you don't have much longer to live. And when you go up to the pearly gates, you won't be able to take an attorney along with you." So I stay at the back and just welcome people that come in with the cars.
Escorting the women coming
and men.
And men.
Yes.
Coming to Planned Parenthood.
Exactly.
I've seen the protesters there, and I'm glad to know that you're finding that good way to help bring about social justice.
One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that we have 4 books of poetry by David Breeden.
Oh, not just one, 4.
Yeah.
What's this other one?
Well, this is my favorite one. That the title is.
Is that a chalice there?
Yes, it is. I think it is.
A artistic image of a chalice.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
They played for timelessness.
With chips of wind. I don't understand it, but it's a nice title.
But you found a good poem in there, I understand.
Oh, this one just blows me away. It's called The Problem of Suffering. Last time I spoke with God, I asked about just that problem and got an earful. When you create everything, some things are going to slip through. You know, like suffering, like death, things like that. Very hard humor.
Yes.
And I'd like to share with you, I haven't been fond of poetry, but since I've been reading David Breeden's, I've become much more enthused about poetry. So I wrote one called H2O.
H2O, your poem.
Yeah. Things to do, I still have. With the stars, I met up. Count them. I could not. Too many they were. From a well, I drew water to drink. Too much for me, so To others I offered. Now, not thirsty, I am.
And there's some meaning beyond the words there.
Yes.
Would you care to tell us more about that?
Well, what I'm struggling with now is trying to smooth out the edges on this. I call it if what. What if the world turned slower? You know, the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
What if the world turned slower? Metric we'd go. Seconds, 100, not 60, 100. Minutes, 100. In an hour. How many hours? 100. Days. 100 for a year. 100 years for a century. All metric. And finally, a good God does not exist. She, it, he invented must be. And last, a Victorian library would have male and female authors' books on separate shelves to keep them apart. It's Victorian. Unless they were married or divorced, then more books.
Yes.
Doesn't it follow?
That seems to follow divorces, yes. They
More
want to
books.
tell their side sometimes. Fortunately, I think in First Unitarian Society, we have many weddings that are we're celebrating the marriages, but we also respect those who decide to terminate that marriage
For
and try to
cause.
help them do it in a way that's equitable and
Good for good cause.
justice, loving,
Yes.
and especially looking out for the kids.
Exactly. Very important.
So, what's this?
This is the last thing that I want to share with you if we have time.
Well, we've got 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Okay. Ere I go up in smoke and ash, may I a small house and a large garden have, and a few friends and many books, most true and wise and delightful too.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ray. Really appreciate what you shared with us today,
It was a pleasure.
and I'm looking forward to hearing from you about the books that you're reading. The
Brilliant.
Brilliant Blunders by Mario Livio, and A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence M. Krauss, Krauss,
Yes.
and of course the 4 books of poetry by David Breeden, one of them being used from the Kingdom of God, Meditations on the Gospel of Thomas, another being they played for timelessness. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you again in a week or so.
That's it.